You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we welcome in John Tolley, experienced trial attorney at JT Law and founder of Let's Litigate. John, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good, Ben. How about yourself?
Good, good. How are things in Brooklyn tonight?
Actually, it's a beautiful weather. I think it's 66 degrees out, so it's feeling nice. It was raining a little bit today, but it's cooled down quite a bit now.
Right on. Yeah, we had some pretty heavy rain up here in Massachusetts. So pretty psyched to have you on. I really think it's cool that what you're doing with Let's Litigate. So I'm psyched to get into that. But first, you know, like we're Lawyer Stories, so we want to hear like some of the stories, some of the background, maybe what like led you there. So like first of all, I was on your website earlier for the JT Law. Okay. And I thought it was interesting that your law firm's slogan is where you don't have to settle, right? Like that's your slogan. I feel like that really kind of connects to like what you're doing with like your second step thing in terms of like, let's litigate, like you don't have to settle. Because can you tell us about that a little bit? Like where you came up with that?
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, when you're representing homeowners, they don't have the power to go up against these insurance companies. They don't have the money to go up against the insurance companies. And I found when I was on the other side, when I was on the insurance defense side, you could kind of outlast the homeowner, right? You could get them to settle because they're just sick of the claim and they want to settle the claim. So I didn't like that. I like representing people and helping people. So when I came to this side, to the plaintiff side, I was like, hey, I don't want my clients to feel like they have to settle. I don't want them to hire an attorney that they think just wants to settle the case. You know, I'll tell you the pros and cons if you don't want to settle the case, but you know, at the end of the day, I will try the case. You don't have to settle.
Right. No, I think that's really cool, especially with like where you don't have to settle. That's your law firm, and then you know you have a new business. Let's litigate. So it's kind of, I feel like they kind of go hand in hand. So
it's funny. I didn't even pick up on that, honestly. Like,
yeah, I love it. So like, let's just take it back a little bit. Like, just tell us where you're from and like where you grew up.
Yeah, so I'm actually from Orlando, Florida. I grew up there. I went to high school there. I went to college there at UCF.
Nice.
Then law school happened, and I was trying to apply to a bunch of different schools. I was trying to make my way up to New York. It was one of those years where they had like record numbers of applicants. So I ended up getting accepted to Nova down in Fort Lauderdale. I decided, hey, I'll go to South Florida and I'll start my career there. And I loved South Florida, and I met my wife eventually, and we decided to move back up to New York to be closer to family.
That's awesome. So I actually have a cousin who went to Nova who does, I think, appellate insurance work in South Florida. So by the way, like I'm happy to connect you with anybody you ever see on Lawyer Stories. That's what I like to do. You know, if you ever see any trial lawyers, ever see anybody in Florida, New York, whatever, let me know and I'll do like a warm introduction for you. So like, what was the moment you knew that you wanted to be a lawyer?
So my mom would tell you that it was from like when I was like 5 years old, because we would talk and I would say, actually, and then I would just continue like arguing against her and like making my point. I honestly don't remember. It was probably like 8th or 9th grade. I just felt like, hey, this is what I want to do. Like, I like talking. I found myself like defending my friends, you know, like arguing with the teachers about, hey, like, that's not right. You didn't do this on this person, but you're doing it on this person. So then I kind of was
equality.
Like,
hey, there you go. So you were like, yeah, you were like big into equality, basically.
Huge. I have 2 sisters. So like when my mom would punish us, it would be like unequal for me and equal for them. And she's like, you have to have a ledger. Cause like every time she would punish me, I'd be like, but wait a minute, you gave Lauren this.
So, and then that's an example of you using precedent, right? Like going back and saying like this stuff. Okay.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. I used it all the time. She would get so annoyed. She'd be like, well, I'm mom. I get to make up whatever I do.
According to March 31st, this is what she got for, that's funny. That's awesome.
Yeah. So then I ended up going to college and I got on the mock trial team. And then that's when I realized like, I want to do litigation. Like, that's when I was like, okay, That's the type of lawyer I really want to be.
And that was UCF?
That was the Knights, go Knights, charge on. Yep.
So one thing I noticed too is like you were a lawyer stories and lawyer stories. You were a legal studies and criminal justice major, correct?
Right.
So
right.
I was a legal studies major when I went to UMass, and I really loved it. Like, did you tell us a little bit about that major there at UCF?
At UCF, it was great. We had like actual lawyers that practiced law and taught for the most part. I mean, obviously, you had tenured faculty, but a lot of the classes were taught by lawyers who were actually practicing while they were teaching. So that was awesome. We got great experience. And then the faculty teachers were great too. Like we had one teacher who refused to let us use Westlaw or LexisNexis. And I thought it was so stupid at the time. I mean, she would make you go to the library and you would have to find like, the second reporter or whatever and find your case and do all this back citing and stuff. And at the time, I obviously didn't like it, but it was great. Like that was some of the funnest 4 years of my life.
That was like traditional law school, like in the stacks. And I think when I was in school, we actually had to do that for our legal methods. And I think that the year after, when I graduated, they finally let kids say, forget it, you could just use online. So that's great that the teacher, the professor had you do that. So like, what was your experience like on the trial team at UCF?
So it was so cool. I mean, I grew up with not a lot of money. We didn't get to travel a lot. So when I got on the mock trial team, they would subsidize your travel, right? So we would get to go to all of these different states, all of these different cities. And we were a pretty good team too. So we did pretty well. We advanced quite a bit. And I got to see things that, I got to fly in planes a bunch. Before I joined, I only flown on a plane like maybe 2 or 3 other times. So that was awesome. It was great. And it really, even to like this day, when I'm in court, sometimes I reflect back on those moments, even though it was mock trial. And I'm like, hey, that worked when I did this. I slipped up a witness on that. And you're talking about in those days, it was, a person who was ideally going to law school, who was a college student. So, it really helps translate into real life when maybe your witness is not a professional or doesn't have experience with the legal system. You can kind of rely on those experiences to, kind of push your case and have a better presentation.
Got it. So you went to Nova Southeastern, Shepherd Brawl Law Center. So what was your experience like there, like at law school? What did you do?
My wife is going to kill me for this because she had like the worst time ever in law school, like always studying. I thought it was great. It was my first time really getting away from home. And like, I stayed off campus, and I had a lot of fun. But I joined the mock trial team like as soon as I got there, but they made you like kind of redshirt for that first year. You had to pass your 1L classes. So I was killing me because like I really love to do that, but I made great friends. I have friends still that even though I live in New York and they live in Florida, we talk every day. So that was a blast. I mean, and then that really kind of set you up where your coaches were practitioners that I ultimately practiced against or with.
Right.
And so you really got a lot of experience, and we did, very, very successful on those teams. Like, we finished in a national competition. We finished second place. We beat Harvard and all this crazy stuff. So that was awesome. It was cool.
Yeah. So that's awesome. So that you knew what you wanted to do, like you were into it right away. And like, I love how you use the term red shirt for your first year. Like, I totally get that. They don't let you do like anything, right?
I'm a big football guy, man. I'm a big college football guy.
There you go. So we'll talk about that later. So so you're at law school. Like, did you find the classes like criminal procedure or maybe evidence, like really kind of like, was that something that you were really interested in? Like,
so I love that stuff. Okay. Yeah. So I interned with the 17th Judicial Circuit's prosecutor's office, like basically the whole time I was in law school. Yep. Like I paid money to intern because they didn't pay you, obviously. I drove like, 30 minutes there, 30 minutes back. I had to eat lunch there. So I was like paying to learn, right? But it was so cool. I mean, I got to watch murders and, all of these different serious crimes. Then I ultimately did like the certified legal internship there where you could actually try cases. So before I even graduated from law school, I tried 5 cases.
That's amazing.
Like, and I had such cool prosecutors. Like they would just be like, you can try it all by yourself. Like I'll sit here and I'll do my paperwork and you can do voir dire, opening, like you can do whatever.
Just go do it. I'm going to lunch.
Yeah. It was awesome, dude. I helped because what you would do is you go around and say, okay, who has like a case you really don't want to try? Because I don't want to try this case. So literally at one time I had a partner that was like sitting at the table. She was doing discovery and like, I'm sitting there picking a jury and doing opening and she's not even paying attention to the case. She's just doing discovery. But it was cool. I mean, like I said, I got to do 5 real jury trials before I even graduated from law school. So that was a blast. So when I would
amazing. And that's amazing. And coming from somebody who, and this is about you, not me, but I'm just comparing and contrasting a little bit. So coming from somebody who didn't even take trial ad, which I feel like I should have just taken that, even though I didn't think it was going to be like up my alley. Like I really respect that you know, because I think trial ad when you're in law school, it's like, you know, that's what you're sort of there for. But some people don't want to do it because like it's their first time. They got to get up in front of everybody. They got to do their opening. You know, they got to do the trial. They got to do the closing. But you to like really go in there, get redshirted, and then like literally do five cases, 5 trials before you even graduated. That I think that's remarkable. So congrats to you for pushing forward and doing those things.
It was a blast. It was so much fun.
Did you have like a mentor through this time or anything?
Yeah, I mean, so my biggest mentor is Judge Mindy Solomon down in Broward. I mean, she was like, but she actually became my mentor during that time. So you had to do this thing where like you got 6 weeks of class, and then after the 6 weeks of class, you'd be assigned to like a division. So she was like a professor that was teaching you in those 6 weeks, but she's also a judge. So she was so mean to me for those 6 weeks, man. Like I would say the right answer and she'd be like, wrong, sit down. Somebody else would say the same answer as me. That's right. I mean, she was so mean to me. And then next thing you know, they picked me for her division. And I don't even know if I've ever told her this, but I was like, oh, man, like this is going to be a rough semester. Yeah. And now she's like one of my closest friends. She's a huge mentor of mine. But, you know, then when you start your career, obviously you develop so many other mentors as well.
It's like pledging, man, like the whole experience, you know.
She said it's because she saw talent. I don't know if that's true or not, but maybe she was just
well, they do that. I mean, if they like you, they're gonna do that. But at the time, you don't know that they're doing that. So,
oh no.
So like you were at the prosecutor's office. Like, why did you take the shift to insurance?
So you know, the prosecutor's office was great. It was so much fun. I got to do what I really love to do, and that's try cases. But at the end of the day, you know, as we get older, you know, you want to make a little bit more money. You know, you're not making that as a prosecutor. I think my first paycheck was like $1,800 for the entire month, like the entire month as being a prosecutor. So at some point when I was being a prosecutor, I had gotten to a point where there was only about 2 more promotions till I got to like the top of the top. Yep. And you only get paid on promotion, right? So I was like at $50,000, and I had like 2 more promotions at like $2,500 a piece. So you're talking about like you're maxing out for the rest of your career at $55,000 a year.
Right,
you know,
right.
So it was like, I can't live on this salary. I've got to make a transition. And
I mean, especially if you have like, you know, a lot of people have like law school loans and this and that.
Oh yeah.
You know, you can't, it's like having 2 mortgages. So it's so difficult.
Oh yeah. And I do. I have like, you know, $250,000 in student loan debt or whatever it costs, you know, for Nova. Yeah. So like, yeah, it was definitely one of those things where you had to start making some money outside of just being a prosecutor. So I chose insurance defense because I figured I always wanted to represent I want to represent plaintiffs, but I felt the best way to do that would be to learn how they, you know, go forward with cases. And by they, I mean the insurance carriers, right? So if I could learn from them, then I would know how to better represent somebody who's going against them. So that was kind of why I transitioned into that portion of that type of law.
Okay. And then, so like, then when did you decide? You said, I want to start my own firm. Like
so how
long were you in the insurance part before you started your firm?
1 year. That was it.
That was it.
1 year. Yeah. I had issues with what they were doing to homeowners that I just didn't like. You know, like I said, you know, I like helping people. I don't like, you know, I don't do just for the money. So I did a year of doing that, but I had always known I wanted to do my own law firm. Like even when I was thinking about leaving the prosecutor's office, I thought, hey, maybe I'll just jump straight into owning my own law firm. My mom owned her own business. You know, when my parents separated, she started her own business. Yep. And we come from a family of entrepreneurs. So I knew I wanted to be a law firm owner at some point. It was just, when was I going to do that?
Okay. Got it. And then, so how long have you had your firm now?
So we opened in January of 2019. So
okay, congratulations. And then you came up with this other idea for, and we're going to discuss now, Let's Litigate. So when did this start, and what is Let's Litigate? Tell us about it.
So my passion for teaching or coaching started from even when I was on mock trial, right? You would have people who are younger than you trying to learn the ropes. And I would like to take them under my wing and say like, hey, look, I did this. Why don't you try that? And then once I left law school, I was blessed enough for them to bring me back on as a coach right away. So I started coaching law students as soon as I graduated.
Right.
And then, you start becoming a prosecutor. And as you rise the ranks, the people below you, the younger people don't have as much experience, and you try to help them out. So I had always kind of felt this want to coach somebody. And then that's where Let's Litigate was born from. Because when I got to the insurance world, a lot of those people don't want to try cases. They don't have the experience. And so you'll go on to these home inspections with these older attorneys, and they'll look at you and assume because you're young, you don't know how to litigate. So they try to kind of like bolster their chest and say, oh, well, if you don't take my offer, we'll just litigate. And they didn't know that I had tried 40 jury trials. And I'm sitting there like, okay, if you want to try a case, that's fine with me.
Yeah. Really? So do you have like, do you remember like specific times that happened? I think that's really interesting that you had it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it would happen all the time. Like, and 99.9% of the time, the person hasn't even tried a case that's arguing with you. They'll say like, oh, and it's usually like an older attorney, and they'll see you and assume that you've been doing insurance your whole career,
right,
and that you won't try a case. So yeah, I mean, I remember one of the first times I was actually working for the defense side, and I went to a home inspection. There's this old guy there, and we're talking, and he starts chatting it up with me, and I was like, oh yeah, I tried 40 jury trials, and his eyes like, next thing you know, he sent a demand, I sent him a settlement offer before that inspection. 2 days later, he accepts the offer, case is resolved, case is over. So
wow, that really actually shows the importance of getting the right person to represent you.
Oh yeah.
Right. You got to get somebody who really is not afraid to go to battle for you.
That's why we came up with where you don't have to settle, because we really will take every case to trial if our clients want to.
Right. No, and I think that's awesome. So how are you doing with Let's Get Litigate? Like, have you been coaching? Like, how does it work? Are you doing it virtually because of COVID, or how are you going about it?
So right now everything's virtual, and I kind of wanted to make this different than every other coaching method or every other CLE program. So everything's virtual. It's on Zoom, just like we're doing right now. It's one-on-one. I sit. You go on our website. We have different packages. We have a la carte menu. You can pick, hey, look, I want to learn only how to do a deposition. You can use one of our trial packages, and you can learn for everything from voir dire to closing arguments.
Wow.
So it just depends on what the person's looking for. So it's on the website. You basically buy it like you're buying something off of Amazon.
Okay.
And you pick a date, and we schedule our date, and we do something like this where we just sit and I go through kind of my structured teaching outline of, hey, this is how we can do openings. And it's not structured for just new people who haven't done anything. It's everybody. Maybe somebody hasn't been in trial for 5 years and they want to refresh something, they can do that. And we're expanding. We don't have it on the website yet, but I think our biggest thing and our biggest help, and what I've been doing a lot of lately, is somebody will have a trial set 3 months from now, and they'll call me and they'll say, hey, look, I don't know if I should try this case. So they'll hire me to review everything, to tell them the pros and cons, consider the settlement offer, and then say, hey, look, I think you should settle this, or I think you should go forward to trial on this one.
Wow. So that's awesome. So you're definitely consulting with other firms and giving them information based on your knowledge. You have a lot of knowledge of trying cases. That's pretty cool. So like, how does it work with the jurisdiction and like procedure and that sort of thing? Does it vary a lot state to state?
So the essence of trial is pretty much the same no matter where you go, right? Okay. Like, you're picking 6 to 12 random strangers. Your openings is going to be pretty much the same. Closings are going to be pretty much the same in terms of there's not a lot of differences between jurisdictions. Evidence obviously depends on, if you're in the feds or if you're in New York or New Jersey or Florida. But for the most part, like the essence of presentation is the exact same. So it doesn't matter if you're in Washington State or in Florida, the way you tell your story, the way you persuade the jury to view the light or the review the evidence in your light is the same. Right. Whether you're in a different state or a different jurisdiction.
So how long are the sessions with you generally?
So it depends on what you book for. A lot of the people book for like I think the 2 or 3 hour courses. I haven't had somebody do the full 8-hour trial package. That would be broken up into 2 days though. There's no way we could do like 8 hours straight.
You don't want to sit there on Zoom for 8 hours?
I think somebody would kill me if I did that, honestly. Yeah. You're to Zoom and get to it, but it just depends on what you're looking for. Like that's one of the reasons why I wanted to make it Let's Litigate, because at the end of the day, I want the person to walk away from it and be like, hey, I actually learned something from this. Like, it's not a standard CLE program. It's not a standard coach program where this guy's doing the same old stuff every time and he's just charging me an arm and a leg for it.
Right. So like, what would you say is like like the difference with your coaching services than what you were just saying just now?
Because like a lot of these things, like we get those emails all the time for CLEs, right? So like a lot of it is a 6-hour CLE where you're sitting there and it's the same old stuff you've heard in every other CLE. And it's not specific to what you actually want to learn, right? Like, you might have one session where you're like, okay, this is what I wanted to learn. But you get to go on this website and you get to say, hey, you know what? I've never done a jury selection. Let me rely on this guy who's done 45 and let me see if, I can learn something unique from him. Because I mean, jury selection is probably our most popular thing to talk about. Most people are most nervous about that. And it is. I mean, it's the one thing that's not scripted in all of trial. I mean, obviously things change throughout trial, but you don't know what your panel is going to look like before you see them. You don't know what type of answers you're going to get to the questions that you ask them. And you've really got to pre-try your case without getting an objection, right? So that's probably our most popular. So for instance, when somebody wants to learn about that, they're only going to learn about that, so it's very select and specific to what you want as the consumer.
That's awesome. So you get to go on, it's like you have a menu. If you put together your unique package, you say, John, teach me this. Like, I want to know about how to object, like, or something like different, things that you can, you have on there, and you can just cater the package towards you. It's not, you're not telling them, the people, what they're going to learn. They're telling you what they need to learn.
I mean, obviously we've created some packages if you don't want to do that, like if we do the full trial package, it's going to teach you everything, but that's probably for somebody who has a trial that's never tried a case, right? They're coming up on it. They want to learn everything as fast as they can. But yeah, you 100%, we have a total build your own. You can go up there, you can select every single thing you want. You could select one, you could select 10, it's just up to you.
And what if they have questions after the session? Are you open to emails and stuff like that?
Of course. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I don't do this just to turn a profit, because if I'm doing that and not helping them and looking, cheap and all of that stuff, they're never going to recommend me to anybody else. They're not going to come back to me. Right. My idea is that I provide you with a service that's unique, that you feel like you got something out of, and you'll recommend me to your friends, or you'll come back and say, hey, look, I've got a case that I don't want to try. Would you try it for me? And then we'll work out something there,
So, and I think I know the answer to this, like, I think you said it, but like, you've only been practicing for 7 years. So like, what experience? I think the experience is probably the vast majority, all the cases that you've tried, but like, what would you tell somebody who said, hey, well, you've been practicing 7 years. Like, why should I spend money, like, learning how to litigate from you, like the trial techniques? What would you tell them?
I mean, I would tell them, how many cases have you tried? How many juries have you sat in front of, and you've picked that jury and they've come back and said, you know what, you're right. Here's your full estimate. Here's a not guilty, or here's a guilty, depending on what you're doing. That's the biggest thing. And it's the unknown, right? Everybody's scared, especially in your first trial, but it doesn't just take your first trial to get good at it. Like I remember one time when I was doing voir dire, it was probably like my 6th trial, my 7th trial. And I got destroyed by a juror, like absolutely destroyed.
What do you mean? Like what?
So I was doing these hypotheticals that, like, they kind of taught you at the office that you should do in every case, because, you were trying to get these younger attorneys to be used to doing something like that. So they gave us some type of like hamburger example. So the state has to prove elements, and think of a cheeseburger. You've got the bun, the cheese, and the burger. And the guy just called me out. He's like, dude, you're here as a prosecutor talking to me about cheeseburgers. Like, why should I care about this? So I changed up my voir dire. Like, I read some books and I did some research, and like,
who told you to do the whole cheeseburger thing? Like, was that your thing?
It was something that floated around the office, like it was just, people who weren't creative were kind of floating it around, and then everybody kind of incorporated, because, you're sitting, I mean, my first day as a prosecutor, I tried a case, like the first day, there's no time to learn. You're just kind of thrown in and you sink or swim. So you're just trying to get advice from everybody else that's been there a little bit longer than you have. And somebody threw out the cheeseburger, and when you're, a young attorney, you go, oh, gee, that's a great idea. But you don't think how it sounds to that jury, when they're talking about it. So,
yeah, I could understand, like, if I was a juror, like having an attorney talk to me about like the elements of cheeseburger. It would probably make everybody hungry too. They'd be like, all right, when's lunch?
I still do some corny stuff, but now I know to go up to them and say, look, we're not allowed to talk about the facts of our case. So I have to give you these hypotheticals, and I'm not trying to make it sound, corny or minimize what's going on here, but just understand that the rules prevent us from talking about the actual specific facts of the case. And then usually that gets people to understand why you're doing a couple weird scenarios or hypotheticals with them,
Do trial attorneys really need to memorize their opening and closing statements? Is that really how it goes?
So, I mean, I'm a little bit, I'm more on the side of memorization, right? Because my whole thing is your presentation from the beginning of the case till the end of the case weighs a lot on the jurors. Like, for instance, I memorize every juror's name before I go up and speak to them. So when I'm doing my voir dire, I'm calling these jurors' names without looking at a piece of paper. And I mean, the last two trials I've tried, and this isn't to like brag or anything, but 2 times I've had jurors say like, that was impressive in the middle of my voir dire. So it's about impressing the jury and persuading the jury. So I mean, now at this point, I've done so many trials that your opening has a certain structure, your closing has a certain structure, that I don't need to memorize anything because I kind of know how it's going to go, right? But I'm a big fan of memorizing things. I try not to use a legal pad as much as possible. Obviously, like on rebuttal or cross-examination, you want to make sure you specifically quote something,
Right.
use it. But for the most part, I just kind of write notes during trial to make it look like I'm busy, and then everything kind of comes up off the top of the head.
Wow. Yeah, that's impressive. That's definitely a skill. So like we've talked about let's litigate, but like was working in insurance against these like older attorneys, you say, like who, you know, you're gonna get these settlement offers and whatnot. Like, was that a reason, do you think, that you opened Let's Litigate? Because it felt like some of these attorneys just didn't want to go to trial? Like what was
Yeah,
the
so the thing with that would be like every single time you'd go up against somebody, they'd be like, you know, they try to puff their chest out and be like, okay, then let's litigate, right? Almost like they were saying, well, you know, you don't want to litigate, so just take my offer or just take my demand, you know? And so I would kind of respond back to them with, all right, let's litigate. And this was kind of this empowering statement, right? When you could go back to that person and say, then let's litigate. And then you could actually litigate. And then you could go forward and you could file your motions and develop good argument and bring a good case theory in front of a jury. And now doing that for several years has caused obviously reputation where people know now that I will litigate. And now it's an empowering statement. And that's what I want it to be for people who want to sign up for it, is to not be afraid of that statement, let's litigate, but to be, you know, to throw it right back at them. Okay, let's do it. Let's invite litigation.
Right. No, that's very important. So like, what's your advice for somebody who like gets like, let me start here. When you had Socratic method in law school, were you like
memories?
Yeah, I just want to go back to that for a second, leading into another question. Like, was that easy for you because you like to just you're sort of you're a litigator at heart, you know? So was that easier for you than you'd say another student?
Yeah, I mean, I think that because I had the experience with mock trial team in college and then, you know, obviously did it in law school, it helps you think on your feet so much. You know, especially when you're doing evidence, right? When you're getting objections. So when you would have that question by the professor, you instantly could come up with something. You weren't sitting there going, and you could just pop out an answer. Even if it was wrong, at least you sounded confident and they might have bought it, you know?
Right. Actually, I think the torts professor, who I also had for evidence, said that even if you didn't know the answer, if you say it with a lot of confidence, doesn't matter. You know, like it doesn't matter if you're wrong or not. Like as long, you know, it's just say they'd rather have you say it confidently. I think
that honestly, that's why I tell my students. Like we do this whole exercise sometimes where they'll say like objection relevance, and I'll, you know, be like, even if it's wrong, objection, you're on a relevance, you know, 401. And then if you sound confident, the judge might believe you because no judge knows every law. You don't know every law. The defense counsel doesn't know every law. So if you say it confident, it might come off and it might do the job, you know?
Yeah, totally. So like, what's your advice for someone who gets nervous in front of a judge?
You know, at the end of the day, we're all people and we're all doing a job. And at the end of the day, all you can do is do what's best for the client, right? So preparation helps calm those nerves. If you think that you can just wing it and you're a person that does get nervous, I guarantee you, if you were to just prepare, and I know it sounds so simple, but just read over the motion a million times, make sure you're ready on the case law. If you have to, write it out. You know, sometimes people learn by just writing things out, but preparation is the start. If you prepare your case like it's going to trial every time you appear somewhere, you're going to be fine. You know, you're going to know this case better than anybody else.
Okay, that's good advice. Thank you. And so like, where do you see Let's Litigate in 5 to 10 years?
I'm hoping that it's kind of the main thing I do. Like I said, I love to teach people. I love to help people. So what I wanted to do is kind of transition into like my full main business. Obviously, I still want to practice law because I still want to try cases. And I feel like if you're teaching somebody how to do something, you should be doing it yourself, right?
That's true.
But I love to teach people and I love to help people. And what I would hope it would transition to is, people obviously hire me to help coach them do certain aspects, but also I'm not opposed to, if you want me to go try your case, I'll go try your case,
Okay.
Yeah. Like kind of like a hired gun.
What's that?
Kind of like a hired gun, like a mercenary,
I think there's probably a lot of business out there for that, for people who would just, they bring it to the trial and they're like, okay, who wants it, and there comes John Tolley in for the kill, like with the trial, right?
Well, what would be nice is I file my notice of appearance and then all of a sudden they get full settlement demand and we all get paid and we all go home happy.
There you go. There you go. You're sitting in court waiting. So like, what's your advice for someone wanting to be a trial lawyer?
Just do it.
Just do it. All right.
Just do it. Like I told you, I did this in college. I didn't even know I wanted to do mock trial. I happened to have a professor that was the coach of mock trial. She made it sound really cool. Like I said, I didn't travel a lot of places before then. So I started, and that just kind of opened it up, right? But I was nervous. I almost skipped out on the tryout. I wasn't a good public speaker before then. And I just decided to do it. And now I can get up and public speak. I can, go talk to 50 strangers in voir dire and be okay. I can appear in front of different judges in different jurisdictions. But until you take that leap, until you jump off that ledge and just do it, you're never going to do it. You're going to question yourself. You're going to make up excuses. You just got to just swallow it and just go forward, push through. And it gets easier. It does. Every single time it gets easier and easier.
Love it. Or call John Tolley if you need some advice. Need some help. Absolutely. So like, did we leave anything out? I want to make sure we get everything in about Let's Litigate, about your firm. I want to sort of an all-encompassing question. Like, is there something else that we didn't cover?
I mean, I guess I have to mention it because, she's the biggest person in my life, but my firm's a little unique in the standpoint of my law partner is also my wife. So we, like I said, we practice in New Jersey, New York, and Florida. She's awesome. She does like immigration and wills and trusts. And then I do the insurance and the criminal defense. Yeah. So it's
really cool.
Yeah. And then Let's Litigate, obviously, I think we've covered Let's Litigate enough. I think people know what it's about.
Okay. Well, John, we'd be happy to feature your wife on Lawyer Stories feed too. If you want to send her story over, that'd be cool.
I'm going to tell her after this. We're in the office right now. She's in the other room working. So she was wondering how it's going to be. So I'm going to tell her it was a great time. And
very good
podcast as it is.
Yeah, man. So, all right. I just want to make sure there's nothing. How can everybody contact you?
So for Let's Litigate, our website's super simple, www.letslitigate.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. I have a TikTok. That's a new thing that I'm trying to get off the ground.
Yeah.
Let's Litigate is the handle for that. I make some funny videos. Batman makes a couple of appearances in different videos. But
I got to see that, man.
It started as like the story telling your younger self. I did like a little Batman thing, and now it's turned into like a whole new project with Batman making appearances every couple of weeks.
All right. Yeah. Very cool. All right. Well, I think I love the niche. I think, I think it's really important. I think a lot of people get away from like what's the classic practice of law, which is being a trial lawyer. So congratulations to you on sort of, becoming an expert in that. And especially, not right out of law school, but like at a young age where you still, you're going to keep going and going and going. There's so much potential. And I think, you will definitely be able to teach a lot of people some good skills. So, congratulations to you on finding Let's Litigate. I think it's super cool. And we can't wait to promote it some more on Lawyer Stories.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Lawyer Stories is awesome. And so it's just a cool vibe all around,
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. Stay right there. Everybody else, wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourselves. Cheers.